after that when it doesn't seem to be real. And so they talk about 5 different topics in this book that came out in their surveys, and how Christians think they're showing it and how these outsiders are actually receiving it. So that's what this book is about, and it's a good little book to read. Very interesting. It'd be very interesting to see if there's any similarities between what this book done throughout the Western region, the West, and then how people in Korea and Asia would actually think of the church when exposure to it has been different. So that's what inspired the title, okay? That's why I'm asking, who are you to your neighbor? Who does your neighbor see you as a believer, as a Christian? When we read our scripture today, it's but one of many passages, especially in Deuteronomy, that has to do with specific teachings given to the people to follow, to show themselves as believers in God, to show that they follow a living and active God. It addresses how the people of Israel are to be different from the nations around them in following their God, and why. In this case, it deals with the area, of money, a very timely subject considering all that the world has gone through with the financial crises that we have seen happen. We must really stop and ask ourselves, does the way I live my life in these hard times show to my neighbor the difference following Christ makes? How I respond to a crisis when it arises, does it show an outsider or a non-believer what it means to be a Christian? So let's go back and take a quick look at the passage again. God tells the people to be happy lenders of their wealth and not to be so concerned about being paid back. Doesn't sound like wise financial planning. Kind of think, God, maybe that's good for the Old Testament, but it's certainly not going to work in this day and age. He said when it comes to lending to a fellow citizen or to a Jewish person specifically, they weren't to be worried so much about being paid back. Every 7th year, they were to cancel debts. And so if the person had not paid back the amount of money by that time, it was forgiven. So you might think, wow, people could take advantage of that. Just keep putting it off until the 7th year. Or if I was Jewish and another Jewish person came to me in the 5th year and asked for money, I'd say, well, let me think about it a couple of years until it starts over, and I'll give it to you so I can be sure to get my money back. But God is saying that, that's not the important part. I'm your God, and I've given to you so much. Don't you remember? You were foreigners in Egypt. You were outsiders, and the way you were treated, and I've given you so much. It's not about the money. It's not about the wealth. That's only a tool to me, not a goal. And God, I'm sure, knew that many people would try to take advantage of that and maybe even prefer to lend to foreigners. Because the passage, it says, you can collect from foreigners. The 7th year doesn't matter so much. You can collect from them. But there were some exceptions in there. You could collect from them, but you weren't to have any poor in your nation. So even if one of the foreigners who owed you money was among the poor, then they had to rethink about what they were to do. They weren't to have any needy among the people of the land. And part of God's plan for interacting with one another, people trying to take advantage, and people saying, well, I want to lend to you, but I don't want to do it just yet because the 7th year is close and I won't get paid back. God tells them, don't be tight-fisted. Don't hold on to it as if you're never going to let go. Don't be tight-fisted. Don't be hard-hearted. Don't give it grudgingly like, well, all right, here it is. Oh, I'm sorry, I thought I let go. Don't treat each other that way. That is not how a person who follows God is to respond to another person. It's not the way we are to live. We are to be benevolent, just as God has been benevolent. And the whole point is that the nations around would recognize this difference. This group of people who claim to follow this God, they would live differently and they would wonder why. How is this so? This God is real? Our gods are made by our own hands. We've set them up. We worship them. I can burn it up. I can tear it down. I can make a new one. But who is this God who